Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to make this little pig cake or cupcake topper. So I'm using Saracino modeling paste for this character. I have colored it myself and I used Flamingo Pink by Sugarflair to get my light pink color here. Once you've softened your paste nicely, gather it up in your hands and roll it into a nice smooth ball. Once you've got a nice ball shape in your hands, you're going to place your hands at a bit of a V shape to roll the body shape into a cone. So you've got a slightly pointier end and then you've got the rounder bottom end. And gently push this down onto your mat so that you're flattening the bottom of this so it will sit nicely on your cake without falling over. I always press the back of my character, my animal characters especially. I press that out just a little bit to make it stand just that bit better too. Now I always cut this top piece off my cone shape because I want to have a flat piece here. When I add my heads onto my characters, I like them to sit flush against the body, and this does help if you just trim this piece off. So when we add the legs later, I want to be able to add them in right against the body. So just use your fingers to indent two little holes where you're going to fit the legs against the body in a little bit. For my support in this character to keep the head on top of the body, I'm using dried spaghetti here as it is edible. I gently twist it down into the body of the little pig and break it off to leave a little piece at the top where the head will fit on in a bit. So we're going to make the top part of the leg and we're going to make this separately from the foot. To make this part, I've rolled 2 balls of modeling paste, and we're going to press these a little bit flatter and then tuck them in against the body. So just make sure that you've got the same size pieces so that it looks even each side. Once you're happy with the size that you've got, just literally use your finger to press down on just part of the ball. You want this to be a bit fatter on one side and then a little bit thinner on the other, and you can see all I'm doing is just pressing this against the little body. You can use some sugar glue if you need to. My paste was pretty tacky, so I didn't need to add any extra glue on this. And that's the top of your legs done. Now we're going to make the 2 longer legs that are going to come down the front of your pig. Again, you start with a ball shape and you're going to need 2 that are the same size so that the legs that go in the middle here match and they look good standing next to each other. So once you've got your ball shape, you're going to roll this into a long teardrop shape, and as you can see, all I've done is I've pushed it down onto my mat to flatten the end bits a little bit, and you want that little bit a bit wider. That's where the trotter for the pig is actually going to be. Make your second one, make sure that you've got the right size, press flat and just adjust where needed so that they look as close to each other as possible. I did restart this one, as you can see, because I wasn't happy with the shape and the size of it. So once you've done this, you're going to make the trotter part on the bottom of the leg. So to do this, I've just used a sharp craft knife and I just roll it gently backwards and forwards just to make an indent. I don't want to cut all the way through the bottom of the leg here. I just want to mark where the trotter is on the pig. And then all I've done is I've cut out a little V shape to create that trotter on the bottom of the foot. And then I'm cutting across the bottom to make this straight and give it a bit more of a square look. And then obviously just repeat on the other foot too. Gently rolling backwards and forwards and then cutting out the V shape. So you have 2 of the same legs with trotters on the end. It is good to use a really sharp craft knife. It helps not pull the icing and leave you with too much to fix up. Alright, once you've done that, mine is still tacky again, so I don't really need any sugar glue, but again, you can use sugar glue if you do need to. But this paste is great when you work with it. Your hands are warm, so it's warm. You don't need much glue as you're working. Now add them on the front and tuck them in nicely together. Make sure that they're sort of even as possible. And there you go. Now it's to make the little feet that sit on the side of the pig. So you're going to need 2 small pieces of pink modeling paste, and you just once again going to roll into a ball shape, and then I'm going to shape it on my hand just with my finger to make it a little bit thinner on one side and a little bit fatter on the other. So it's almost like a short version of the long leg that you did. And you're once again going to just flatten the end piece and leave the other piece just for now as it is. And just repeat the second time for the second foot. And just make sure that they kind of match again for size, because you don't want one too much bigger than the other or smaller than the other. Right, again, just like you did with the others, mark a little line where your trotter starts, roll backwards and forwards gently, and cut out the little V that you're going to need for the trotter. Nice and easy, and you're basically following the same steps that you did for the long legs. And these you're going to just tuck in nicely under the hip parts that you've already added onto the side of your pig. I always do these after the middle legs, because then you know how much space you've got to actually tuck them in. So again, lift your character a little bit and tuck this in under your pig's body and between the legs in the middle and the hip. Now we're going to make the head for the character. Once again, start with a piece of paste and roll it into a ball. Hold the ball up against your character to check for size, to make sure that it's not too big or too small. When I've rolled the ball shape here, I am pressing at the top part to make it a little bit flatter, and I'm also bringing it in a little bit so that the bottom part of the face is wider and fuller than the top. Once you've placed this on your character, then you're going to add some little sockets for the eyes. We start with a medium-sized ball tool, press it gently into your paste, and then to either make it a little bit bigger or to just soften the edges of this, just gently turn your ball tool within this little bit here. I always do this, and then I use a smaller ball tool to add the hole for the actual eyes to fit into. And you don't want this too deep, you just literally want an indent. Now use the smaller ball tool, and this is where you're going to make the hole for the eyes to actually fit into. Gently press them in so that you're ready to add the eyes in a minute. I want to add a smile to my character, and for this one I'm using a Sweet Elite Arc tool, and I've gently pressed this into the bottom of the face to create a smile. Then I'm using a smaller ball tool, and I'm just making little dimples each side of the mouth to make a happy little character. I added the eyes to my character by just rolling 2 little black balls of black modeling paste, and I just dropped them into the smaller holes in the eyes. Now for the snout, roll an oval shape. You don't need this too big. You don't want the snout standing too far out the front of the face. You just want the little snout effect. So once you've got your oval shape, press it a bit flatter and add it to your character's face. Press it gently on and make sure that you don't misshape it when you add it onto the character. Get a small ball tool and make the little nostrils in the snout for your pig. For the ears for your character, you're going to need 2 teardrop shapes to start with. Roll nice rounded teardrops. They don't need to be massive, just little shapes. And you're going to push these a little bit flatter. You want them nice and flat and rounded one end and pointy on the other, so that you have a lovely pointy tip for your ears. Use your hands to flatten the icing a little bit more, but also to get the shape that you really want for the ear before you add it to the character. So I've pressed this quite flat so that it's got space for me to actually fold the ear over and leave a lovely little point. And we're ready to add this to our character. So I actually fold the ear over, and the fatter part is obviously the bottom of the ear. So just gently add this in place where you want it on your character, and I'm going to just use a tool to press the fatter part down and to blend it into the head a little bit. And then I'm going to curl the top piece over and up, so I've got a floppy ear on the character. Using the back of my Dresden tool, I'm just making a little line in the top of the ear so it looks like it's folded over. Now what would a pig be without his curly tail? So roll a long sausage shape, but make sure it's a bit thinner on one end and a bit fatter on the other, and just twist it over into a little pig's tail shape and add to the back of your character, and adjust as you need, just so you've got a lovely curly little tail on his bum. The cake I was making this topper for was based on an invitation that my customer sent me, and it had a very vintage look about it. So I've used a little bit of Dusky pink petal paste here and a soft brush just to dust over areas on my pig to give it more of a vintage look, so it matched with the invitation on the cake. I'm going to add a flower garland with leaves around the top of the little pig's head. So I've rolled a small teardrop shape from green paste, and I've flattened it with my fingers and then just made a little line in the middle and pinched. This is to make quick and easy handmade leaves. I've made quite a few up already so that I could add them directly to my little pig. Add some sugar glue around the top of the pig's head. I always add sugar glue first, and then I use a tool to help me get the leaves and the flowers in place. So add some glue and add your leaves. I did all the leaves first around the top of the pig's head, and then I cut my flowers out and placed them in between the leaves. So I'm using the back of a Dresden tool to just push this directly onto the head. It just helps you lift it up for one, and also just pushes it down and holds the leaf in place where you need it to be without, well, then it gets stuck to your finger and falls off anyway, so you start again. So try again and push the little leaf into place on the pig's head. And just continue around the head until you've got a lovely little garland, and then you can add your flowers. I wasn't adding quite enough glue here. I don't always use glue, so when I do, I sometimes just forget to actually add enough as I'm going around. So just continue adding your leaves. Some are put together, some I left a bit of a gap between them, but obviously it depends completely on what you'd like to do. For the green for this, all I did was I used a little bit of foliage green, and I only used a touch of it to get this lovely sage color, again to match with the vintage of the invitation that I was basing my cake on. So carry on until you're happy with how many leaves you've got. Add them all gently, and hopefully they all stick and don't start falling off again. Once you're happy with how many you have, then you're going to start adding your flowers. Now I'm just using a PME small blossom plunger cutter here, and I'm going to literally pick up the flower in the cutter and push it down directly onto the pig, onto some glue, so that I don't have to pop the flower out and then try and get it onto the top of the head. I find it easier just to push it out directly onto the head of the pig and continue all the way around. Your finished character ready to add to your cake. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch.